The storm tore through Jerusalem's hills like a divine signal. What was exposed was more than stone and dust. It was a secret, kept hidden for over 5,000 years. King Solomon's final resting place has been found, and what's inside could shatter centuries of legend. Get ready to discover what's been buried beneath the earth until now. The storm hit Jerusalem's hills with an unexpected ferocity, tearing through the quiet, ancient landscape. The wind howled and torrents of rain crashed into the weathered stone slopes. For centuries, these hills had stood guard over one of history's greatest secrets. But that night, something changed. The rain, relentless and heavy, revealed what had been concealed for 5,000 years. A tunnel, a passage, hidden beneath the earth, carved by hands long forgotten. It wasn't until morning that anyone realized the significance. What first appeared to be mere erosion from the storm was something far more profound. Beneath the wet soil and debris, archaeologists uncovered a dark hollow in the hillside, a secret passageway never before seen by human eyes. And in that moment, history shifted. Dr. Leila Morgan and her team, already deep in their research of ancient Jerusalem, were the first to investigate. Using ground-penetrating radar, they mapped the underground passage with shock and disbelief. What was once a faint anomaly on their equipment now became undeniable, a structure, deliberate and constructed. Not the random erosion of nature, but something that had been hidden, sealed, and protected for millennia. The team moved cautiously, with tension building among them. There had been whispers of Solomon's tomb for centuries, stories told in hushed voices, legends passed down through the ages. Scholars had dismissed it as myth, yet here they were standing on the edge of the impossible. What lay beyond the tunnel's threshold? Was this the tomb of the wisest king in history? Or was it something far darker, a secret left buried for a reason? Just as the team prepared to enter the tunnel, the ground beneath their feet rumbled, a sign that even the earth itself seemed to resist the uncovering of what lay hidden. The air inside the tunnel was thick, damp, and still. It felt as though time itself had held its breath for 5,000 years. Dr. Morgan and her team cautiously descended into the dark passageway, their flashlights cutting through the dense shadows. The walls were slick with moisture, and the ground uneven, but they pressed on, determined to uncover the secrets that had been buried so long. As they moved deeper into the tunnel, it became clear that this was no ordinary cave. The walls were too smooth, the passageway too deliberate. Each step echoed, as if the tunnel was holding its own secrets, teasing them with what lay ahead. The air grew heavier with each turn, thick with the weight of centuries. The walls seemed to pulse with a presence, a history that had been waiting to be disturbed. The further they ventured, the more unsettling it became. The tunnel twisted and turned, looping in ways that didn't make sense. Dead ends, false doorways, and perfectly placed obstructions seemed to defy logic. It was as if the tunnel itself was a maze, designed not to guide them, but to mislead them. The team exchanged uneasy glances, each feeling the unnerving sensation that they were walking into something not meant to be found. Then, a chilling realization struck them. This was no natural formation. This tunnel was designed with purpose, and the purpose was clear. It was meant to keep out intruders, to guard whatever lay beyond. The air grew colder, and an unsettling silence hung over them, broken only by the soft scrape of boots on stone. They had entered a place where no one had set foot for thousands of years, a place that history had almost forgotten. The team paused, feeling the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a tomb. It was something more, something far older. As Dr. Morgan's flashlight flicked across the stone slab, the silence in the tunnel deepened. It was a perfect barrier, seamless, impenetrable, the kind of craftsmanship that suggested ancient hands had worked with precision, deliberately crafting a vault meant to withstand time itself. The stone was worn smooth by centuries of neglect, but the edges were sharp and intact, untouched by the decay of the surrounding rock. The slab was solid, giving off a sense of finality. Whatever lay beyond it, it had been sealed for a reason. The team moved closer, their breath visible in the cold air. On the surface of the stone, barely discernible at first, were faint markings, ancient Hebrew characters etched into the surface, so delicate they appeared almost like scratches. But these weren't random. Dr. Morgan's eyes narrowed as she recognized the symbols. This was no simple graffiti. This was deliberate. This was a message. The inscriptions seemed to form patterns, repeating in sequences of 7, a number of great significance in ancient Israel. 7 days of creation, 7 years to build the first temple, 7 seals in prophecy. 7, the sacred number of King Solomon. Her heart raced. These weren't just carvings, they were a clue. Solomon had designed his tomb to be as much a symbol of his wisdom as a final resting place. The markings spoke not just of burial, but of something deeper, an encoded message waiting for someone worthy enough to decipher it. The team stood in awe, knowing that they were on the brink of something monumental. But as Dr. Morgan studied the stone, she began to feel a cold chill creep up her spine. The deeper they went into the mystery, the more it felt like they were disturbing forces that should have remained undisturbed. With the stone slab before them, the question remained: could they break the seal, or had they already gone too far? After what felt like an eternity of hesitation, Dr. Morgan gave the signal. With painstaking care, the team used tools to chip away at the stone slab. Each strike resonated like a thunderclap in the silence, breaking through centuries of secrecy. As the slab slowly began to shift, an eerie gust of air rushed from the depths of the chamber, cold and ancient, untouched by time. It was as if the tomb itself had been waiting for them to release its secrets. The stone groaned under the pressure, and with one final decisive push, the entrance gave way. Dust filled the air, and for a moment the team was blinded by the light of their torches. When the haze cleared, they saw it, an open passage leading into a vast chamber untouched for millennia. Inside, the team was struck by the sheer scale of the room. The walls, lined with intricately carved stone, stretched high above them. Ancient symbols, some of which had never been seen before, adorned the surfaces. Familiar Hebrew inscriptions mixed with esoteric patterns, spirals, and geometric shapes. They felt like they were staring at a map to a lost world. What struck them most were the treasures. Gold vessels, their surfaces shimmering faintly in the torchlight, and a row of ornate artifacts that seemed to speak of both wealth and wisdom. A large menorah, still intact, stood in the center of the room, its presence commanding the space. The vessels, adorned with intricate designs of lions and palm trees, hinted at Solomon's wealth, his reign, and his connections across distant lands. The chamber smelled faintly of saffron and frankincense, the scent of an ancient trade route long abandoned. A soft wind swirled in the room, almost as though the tomb itself was alive with memories of its creator.
But amidst the riches, something more intriguing caught their eye. On the far wall, etched into the limestone, were lines of symbols that seemed to pulse with a strange energy.
The deeper they stared, the more of the shape seemed to move. The team gathered around the walls of the chamber, their eyes locked on the strange symbols that adorned the stone. At first glance, they appeared to be nothing more than artistic decoration, intricate patterns, spirals, and geometric shapes, all carved with such precision that they seemed almost modern. But as Dr. Morgan's team moved closer, a sense of unease began to settle over them. These markings weren't random, they were deliberate. They were designed to communicate something. The symbols appeared to form a cipher, a code, one that had remained hidden for thousands of years. Dr. Morgan ran her fingers lightly over the carvings, tracing the lines that seemed to glow faintly under the torchlight. Some were familiar, but others were completely alien, their meanings lost to time. It was as though someone had crafted this chamber not only as a tomb, but as a repository of forbidden knowledge, wisdom that had been buried, perhaps intentionally, alongside the king. One particular symbol caught their attention, a six-pointed star, larger than the rest, prominently placed in the center of the northern wall. The symbol was unmistakable, Solomon's seal, a mark of authority, power, and wisdom. For centuries, it had been said that this seal could control the forces of nature, even the spirits themselves. But here, carved into the very stone of his tomb, it seemed to take on a different significance. This was no mere decorative motif. It was a message, a key to understanding the true nature of Solomon's reign and the knowledge he had amassed. Beneath the star, more inscriptions appeared, lines of text written in ancient Hebrew, their meaning obscure but tantalizing. As the team studied the words, Dr. Morgan's pulse quickened. One phrase stood out clearly: "The light unlocks what the heart seeks." Was this the key to Solomon's most guarded secret? As the team continued to study the inscriptions, something caught Dr. Morgan's eye, hidden beneath a pile of debris near the far corner of the chamber. At first it appeared to be a simple chest, its edges rusted and covered in ancient dust. But as the archaeologists cleared the debris, they revealed a golden object nestled inside, a ring. The room seemed to grow still as they stared at it, the silence only broken by the faint sound of their breaths. It was a heavy ring, thick with age, but its craftsmanship was undeniable. The metal gleamed faintly in the torchlight, and as Dr. Morgan picked it up, she could feel the weight of history in her hands. The design was unmistakable, a six-pointed star carved into the center of the ring, identical to the one found on the wall. The seal of Solomon. This was no ordinary ring, this was the legendary symbol that had been passed down through myth and legend. For centuries, it was believed to grant the wearer authority over not just men, but over nature, spirits, and the unseen forces of the world. Ancient texts spoke of Solomon using this seal to command the elements, protect his kingdom, and even control mystical forces beyond the understanding of ordinary men. Was this the same ring? Had it been hidden here, in Solomon's tomb, waiting to be discovered? Dr. Morgan held it with a sense of reverence, wondering what power it truly held. The ring wasn't just a symbol of Solomon's royal status, it was a relic of a ruler whose wisdom and influence extended far beyond what history had ever recorded. As the team examined the ring, the room seemed to pulse with an energy that had been dormant for millennia. The discovery felt like a momentous turning point, but it also raised new questions. Was this ring the key to unlocking Solomon's greatest secret? And if so, what would that reveal? As the team continued their examination of the chamber, they found something that startled even the most seasoned archaeologists: a second inscription, carved into the far wall, just beneath the seal of Solomon. This one was different. It wasn't just a symbol, it was a name that echoed through history. Sheba, the Queen of Sheba, the powerful and mysterious ruler who had visited Solomon with riches and riddles, had long been a figure shrouded in legend. Stories of her wealth, her wisdom, and her diplomatic mission to test Solomon's famed intellect were woven into the pages of sacred texts across cultures. But was she just a myth, or was she as real as the treasures and inscriptions that surrounded them now? The inscription in the tomb didn't just mention her, it seemed to celebrate her presence. The symbols surrounding her name told a story of an alliance forged, not just through wealth, but through a union of cultures, knowledge, and power. Her name was etched with care, with a reverence that suggested Solomon's admiration for her. Beneath the inscription, more symbols detailed exchanges of goods, ivory, spices, and treasure, all gifts given between two great nations. These were not just items, they were symbols of a bond, both political and intellectual, that had united two of the most powerful rulers of the ancient world. The discovery of Sheba's name in Solomon's tomb confirmed what many had speculated for centuries, that the Queen of Sheba wasn't merely a biblical figure, but a real sovereign whose influence had shaped Solomon's reign. The tomb, it seemed, was not just a final resting place for a king, but a monument to the vast empire Solomon had built through alliances, trade, and shared knowledge. But there was more. The language used in the inscription hinted at something deeper, a secret relationship, one that went beyond the public exchanges recorded in history. What did this connection reveal about the true nature of Solomon and Sheba's bond? What other secrets lay hidden in the tomb, waiting to be uncovered? As the team ventured deeper into the tomb, their eyes were drawn to the walls once again, where new discoveries seemed to materialize with every passing moment. Among the inscriptions and symbols, something truly remarkable stood out. Carvings of musical instruments. Harps, lyres, and flutes were etched into the limestone with such precision that they seemed to vibrate with life. Each instrument was beautifully detailed, capturing the essence of the sounds that once resonated through Solomon's court.
For those who studied the Bible, Solomon's reign was known not just for its wealth and wisdom, but also for its cultural achievements. He was said to be a patron of the arts, particularly music. The fact that these instruments were prominently displayed within the tomb suggested that music had held a sacred and central role in his life. These weren't mere decorations, they were a testament to the importance of sound and melody in Solomon's kingdom. Dr. Morgan and her team marveled at the carvings, realizing that they might represent more than just art. Some of the instruments seemed to have unusual features, like extra strings on the harps and elaborate carvings on the flutes, as if they were crafted for specific purposes beyond just music. Were these instruments used in sacred rituals, or were they part of the royal court's cultural expressions, designed to elevate Solomon's wisdom and power through sound? But there was something even more unsettling in the air as the team moved closer to a peculiar alcove. A replica of an ancient harp, restored to a playable condition by the team's experts, stood nearby. One archaeologist, intrigued by the discovery, strummed a few tentative notes. The room seemed to hold its breath as the sound echoed through the chamber, a haunting, ethereal melody that felt almost like a message from the past. The music hung in the air, fragile and trembling, but in that moment it felt as though Solomon's world had not only been preserved in stone, but in sound. The question loomed: was this music merely a relic of the past, or did it hold a deeper connection to Solomon's wisdom, a wisdom that could still resonate through time? As the team explored further, they realized something strange. Despite the treasure, the inscriptions, and the sacred artifacts scattered throughout the chamber, one thing was notably absent: Solomon's body. There was no sarcophagus, no bones, no remains of the king himself. The silence around this fact was unsettling, and it raised a question that had plagued historians and archaeologists for centuries. Why was Solomon's body missing? Dr. Morgan and her team combed through the chamber, looking for any sign of a burial site, but found none. It seemed impossible. How could the tomb of such a renowned ruler be devoid of his most important artifact, his remains?
The emptiness left behind was like a hole in history, a missing puzzle piece that challenged the very nature of the tomb's purpose. The absence of Solomon's body had long been a subject of speculation. Some believed it was part of a ritualistic burial custom, with the body being moved or hidden away for reasons unknown. Others posited that the king's death was shrouded in mystery and that his final resting place was left deliberately concealed even from those closest to him. Was his body hidden to prevent desecration? Or perhaps it was removed to safeguard Solomon's wisdom, to keep his legacy intact for future generations. The absence also sparked a deeper, more mystical interpretation. Solomon was said to possess knowledge far beyond his time, secrets of the universe, the stars, and the elements. Could the missing body be tied to the idea that Solomon's spirit was too powerful to be contained in a mere grave? Was his wisdom, or even his very essence, meant to remain beyond the reach of mortal men? The discovery of the tomb had answered many questions, but the absence of Solomon's body only deepened the mystery. What did this absence truly signify? Was it a deliberate act, or was there more to the story that had yet to be uncovered? As the team surveyed the room one final time, they realized that the tomb, despite all its riches and secrets, was still holding something back. The gold vessels, the inscriptions, the strange artifacts, all of it painted a picture of Solomon's empire, a kingdom of unimaginable wealth and knowledge. Yet something remained elusive. The most important discovery, the final truth of King Solomon's life and death, was still just beyond their grasp. The last part of the chamber was the least explored, an alcove hidden in the farthest corner, barely visible through the shadows. Dr. Morgan moved toward it, feeling the tension rise. There, amidst the dust and debris, lay another strange marking. A stone slab, older and darker than the others. But this one wasn't like the others. The surface was rough, unfinished, as if it had been purposely left untouched, as though it were a barrier no one was meant to cross. The air grew colder, the silence deeper. The team, worn out but driven by an unshakable curiosity, gathered around the slab. The markings on it were different from the rest, a series of unfamiliar symbols that seemed to pulse with energy, waiting to be deciphered. Dr. Morgan's mind raced. Could this be the key to unlocking Solomon's final secret? Or was this the tomb's final defense, a hidden message left by Solomon himself to guard his greatest knowledge? The slab remained still. No movement, no sounds. And yet Dr. Morgan's gut told her they were on the verge of something monumental, something that would forever change the understanding of not just Solomon, but the very foundation of history. As they prepared to examine it further, the ground beneath them shifted. A soft rumble, faint but unmistakable, echoed from deep within the earth. The tomb seemed to tremble, as if it too was holding its breath. What lay beyond the stone slab remains a mystery, but one thing was certain: the true secrets of Solomon's tomb were still waiting to be uncovered. The final chapter of Solomon's tomb remains hidden, the slab unbroken, and the answers just beyond reach. What could be waiting beyond that final seal? Could this discovery be just the beginning of a far deeper mystery?